Welcome to the ChangeMakers Podcast, produced by cityCURRENT and brought to you by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance and DataFacts. This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are giving back and making a difference so we can learn and do the same. We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose. Now here's our host, the CEO of cityCURRENT, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the ChangeMakers Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. This time we get to talk about SEO, marketing, all sorts of good stuff, but really most importantly, we get to talk about heart and using businesses to make a difference, which is always the fun of the ChangeMakers Podcast. Here with us today, calling out of Virginia, we have Meg Clarke. She's an SEO expert, and she's also the owner and founder of Clapping Dog Media. Meg, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So the fun of the ChangeMakers Podcast is we get to dive into your personal life and we get to talk all about kind of what led you to starting Clapping Dog Media. But there's some really neat stories in terms of Uganda and how that really led some new adventures for your family. So let's actually talk about starting out. Where did you grow up, and give us kind of a glimpse into your childhood?
Sure. Well, not too far from here. I grew up in Northern Virginia. My parents were both school teachers, and I have an older sister, and I literally grew up about 30 minutes from where I live now. I went to college in Virginia, so I kind of stayed really close to home.
That's good.
And yeah, good old Virginia.
So do you live close by still to your parents and family? Like, is it a tight-knit family?
It is. So my dad passed away 6 years ago, but my mom and my sister are really close, and we see each other a lot because, you know, we're besties. And so my sister has kids and we have kids, and so I really like that the cousins get to grow up together. So we are close, and we are kind of a tight-knit family. So that is, you know, the main driver for living here in a super expensive, highly trafficked area, because there's so much traffic.
I will say that having friends, especially because I spent about a decade in Los Angeles, and for those who, like you said, you grew up in that area, you don't know any different. It's one thing if you grew up in, like, we'll say Memphis, which you can buy a mansion for, you know, like $400,000, $500,000.
Wow.
So in other words, if you're from this area and then you move to those places, you're like, wait, what? But if you don't know any different, then it's okay.
Totally. That's right. Yeah, we don't know what that sounds like. Like $400,000 for a mansion is like, what? That's crazy. That's cool.
Give us one maybe favorite family tradition. It could be something growing up or even now that you enjoy. But give us something that is kind of a favorite family piece for you.
Oh man, Sunday supper. My parents are, you know, are Italian. They're many generations removed, but we have hung on to that Italian heritage. And so one of the things that we have done, and that my family still continues to do, is to have a very purposed, intentional Sunday supper where we kind of cook all day long. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be Italian in nature, but we have a purposed, intentional, long conversation dinner every Sunday, and you can bring everybody's invited. When we go to church on Sunday, we invite whoever we want to come. We invite neighbors. It's just a community. It's all about food and people and just kind of being together. So that is definitely something that I grew up doing, and we still continue to do today.
Well, that's got to be neat for your kids, especially to be a part of that and to carry that forward as a part of their tradition, where they just get to be a part of a big family, and you have the talk and the laughter and just everybody enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, it's like a big party. That's my favorite thing. It's like a big party every Sunday. Yeah.
So talk about on your end, you know, what did you major in college, and what was when you kind of went into college, what was your dream or what was your focus?
Oh my goodness. I did not. I went into college I was a runner. I ran cross country and track. And so that was my focus, was just to be a runner. And then I majored in graphic design and web design. I went to college eons ago, and when I got my first email address in college, like that's how long ago it was. And so when I went to school, it was like, hey peeps, there's this new thing and it's called the WWW. And you're going to be able to get a job if you learn how to design for it. And so that's what I did. I went to school. I ran 1,000,000 miles a week with a really awesome cross-country team. And then because I really liked to draw and I liked pretty things, I went into web design. So to say that I was purposed and I went in with a lot of intent would be a complete lie, but I fell into a wonderful career.
Well, and it's hard to believe. I saw even on social media the other day where the World Wide Web, WWW, was like 1989. So, I mean, in some ways that seems like so long ago, but I mean, you're only talking 30 years. I mean, that's to think how fast everything has evolved so dramatically. And to your point, you might have gone in and kind of fallen into it just based on a love of art and pretty things. But the ultimate reality is we live in a world where digital design and SEO and websites, I mean, all of that now, it's not just important, it's necessary. And so
Absolutely.
Especially in a time right now, those skill sets are extremely important. And obviously they've been able to carve out to where you've got your own business and focus and expertise doing so.
That is so true. I graduated in 2000, and it honestly was a great economic time, but it was easy for me to get a job because we're just at the point where people were convinced that they needed a website. And so when I said, hey, I can design you a website, I know HTML, I got hired right away. But at the time, my parents were like, I don't know what this new thing is. I don't trust anything online. I think you should get like a real job. Just go to the business school. And I was like, no, I'm going to draw on the computer, Mom. Don't worry.
Did it dawn on you too that in general, that tends to be, when you talk about women in tech and technology, it tends to be a male dominated field. Did it ever occur to you, or was that kind of a norm in terms of Northern Virginia of a young woman stepping into that field?
It's totally not the norm. And I love that. I want to be different. And that's part of my passion, kind of jumping forward. I started in design, and now I help businesses get found on Google. And so I do a lot of SEO work, and there's very few women in it. And I love being a woman in it because there's this whole population that I can relate to and that I can talk to. And just being a woman in this field and being understandable and relatable is something that I really love, and that is something that I want to be and that I strive to be. So it's something that's my goal, really. It's my goal in life, is just to kind of bridge that gap.
Well, so let's kind of carry it forward. So coming out of college, you have a chance to work with some ad agencies and kind of go down that path. Talk a little about those experiences, but ultimately it's a trip to Uganda that really kind of changes your perspective and changes your life. And so let's kind of carry this conversation a little bit forward in terms of experience, but then ultimately what starts to change the game for you. For
sure. So yeah, I got out of school. I worked at several really cool design agencies, really hip design agencies in DC. But I spent the majority of my career pre-Uganda at a really cool company that we built websites for churches. Like years ago, churches didn't have a lot of websites. And so, or most churches did not have websites, or they just had like a brochure website. So I worked with I helped start a company where it was kind of like the first content management system. So we could make it easy for churches to maintain their content and update podcasts and put podcasts online. And so I was there for 7 or 8 years, and it was really cool to work with website to bring technology to churches. And during that time, well, as I had gotten married, and my husband and I were both like working 1,000,000 hours a week. And my husband and I had decided that we wanted to grow our family through adoption. We had a heart for Africa. We had a heart for Uganda. We actually had friends who ran an orphanage in Uganda. We supported them. We were friends with them. We supported them as a missions organization. And we always said, one day when we're ready to have kids, we're going to adopt. And then adoption takes 100 years. And so we decided, 2010-ish that we were going to, well, no, I lied, 2007-ish that we were going to get really serious about adoption and pursuing this as part of our family. And we began, going on trips, investigating, and learning about poverty, learning about why people needed to be adopted in the first place, and nutrition issues and water issues back in 2007. And I don't know if I answered your question, because I feel like
that's exactly, you're painting the picture right there. Because I mean, that's the key is there's usually a catalyst when it comes to opening your eyes and seeing okay, what is my purpose? And just as you're describing, you start looking at it for you and your husband is, okay, we know when we want to adopt, we have friends and we have, this opportunity. And next thing, it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to commit and go down this path. And then just as you're describing, it's a whole nother to realize what you're getting yourself into and everything with regards to the process and how long it takes and just, the transition. I mean, there's so many nuances to it. So go ahead and share a little more in terms of what that process was like and the trips and ultimately how you adopted your two sons.
Oh, so fun. Okay. So there was a point when after we had decided that we wanted to adopt, we had a relationship with this orphanage, but at the time, the United States did not adopt from Uganda. It was just not one of the countries that the United States had an agreement with. And so we got to support them. We got to love them. We got to visit them. We could do all the things, but at the time, they were not an agency that there was not a country that we could adopt them. So we worked with we just signed up with an agency, just kind of did it like the normal way. We signed up with an agency, we got on a list, and we began to wait. And at that time, we signed up and began to work with, got on the waiting list for Ethiopia, which was fine. We were waiting, and while we were waiting, that was really when our hearts got really into poverty and why are there so many kids up for adoption? Why are there so many poor? Why are there so many kids who are hurt from malaria and don't have water? Why are there so many kids who have to walk for water? So during this time, my husband and I began to kind of raise the awareness amongst our circle of friends and amongst our community. And so we were both runners. Like I said, I ran in college. And so we started to run races and raise money for places like Charity Water and the orphanage that we ultimately ended up adopting from. And so we would raise awareness. We started using social media and Twitter back in the day and kind of raising awareness for these issues.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward months and months and months and months. We were waiting on the wait list for Ethiopia for a long time. And as we waited, our hearts just got so heavy for the kids in Uganda. And I want to say this with as much grace and love as I can muster, because I truly believe that all children need to be raised in a family. So we were on a list, like a list in quotes, for children who needed a home in Ethiopia. The list was long because we knew it was long because we were on this forum, and every week we would wait for updates to see what children got placed with families, and the list of families was really long, and everybody was really desperate to be placed with a family. And then to contrast that with this orphanage that we knew about, that we loved, that we had been supporting in Uganda, and there were no families waiting for those kids. Because Uganda was not it was not like an official like Hague country, which is just a silly term that means that the United States worked easily with them in the adoption process. Agencies wouldn't work with them at the time. And so there was no families waiting for those kids. It didn't mean that there weren't kids who needed to be adopted and who weren't sick, but there was no one in line. And so our hearts were so heavy because the kids in Ethiopia at the time, they were all going to get families. The list of families was so long, and they were all so eager and so ready to have kids in their home. But over there, just, a couple of countries over, there's Uganda, and there's no one waiting for those kids. And so after being in line, quote unquote, for 2.5 years in Ethiopia, my husband and I decided to get out of line and to kind of take on the unknown and adopt from Uganda. Because we had this relationship with this orphanage, we knew that there were kids that desperately needed a home, like nutritionally, medically, that needed to come to the United States, but they didn't really do adoptions. Uganda didn't really do adoptions. And at the time in 2010, they were having visa issues. And so the United States basically said, if you are from Uganda, there was like 6 months where the United States said, hey, you're not allowed to even come into the United States. We're not letting any Ugandans in on a visa. But it was at that time that we really felt the Lord calling us to get out of line with Ethiopia and get in line with Uganda.
So how much of a learning curve? Yeah, I mean, just from that experience alone, it seems like you've probably learned a tremendous amount in terms of putting in place kind of the protocol and how to actually do it.
Yeah, well, we didn't learn. We did and we didn't. There was not a lot of precedent before us, not because you weren't really there. Not many people had adopted. Like maybe there was like 10 kids had been adopted from Uganda into the United States before us. There was not a lot, and so we just said, okay, well, this is where we really feel like we need to be. And we love this orphanage, and they're good people, and they're doing the right thing. And they say that there's kids that really need help. So we're going to help them. So we're going to do what it takes, no matter what it takes. And if that means that we go over there and we have to stay there for, a year, 2 years, 3 years, we're going to have to do that because that's really what we feel called to do.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where we were, is we had just opened up our eyes had been opened so much to poverty and just the plight of these orphans that we just felt like we needed to be involved.
So tell us about your 2 older sons that you adopted.
All right. So we went over, so we had a couple of trips over there, and we went over to Uganda. The coolest thing ever, I have to tell you that, well, there's so many cool things, but one of the coolest things ever was we were talking to our friends over in Uganda, and they said, okay, why don't you just come out and you can hang out with us and you can hang out with the kids and just come on over. And I said, super, you make the arrangements. Here's my credit card, we'll come over. And so they made all of the arrangements, and it takes, 1 million hours to fly to Uganda. But when they made the arrangements for us, we landed in Uganda on Easter Sunday morning. So our very first trip to Uganda, we were landing as the sun was rising on Easter morning. Wow. So it was like the coolest thing ever. So it was so beautiful and so cool. And it was like, it's like the best day ever. It was like etched into my mind forever. So in 2010, there's kind of a lot between now and then, but it's like a wonderful, beautiful story. In 2010, my husband and I brought home 2 boys. They were 2 and 4 at the time. They're now 10 and 12. Isaac and Joshua. And they are the coolest kids ever. And, well, That's what Isaac and Joshua, they came home in 2010.
So what was there? Because obviously the benefit is them being young. They could transition easier, but talk about kind of the transition for them and acclimating to life in America and what that's been like, and really, on both ends, culturally learning from each other.
Wow. Well, I think they came over, those poor guys, they came over. Uganda, where they're from in Uganda, is really warm. It's right on the equator. So it's always like 78 degrees and it's beautiful. It's warm and sunny and breezy. And those poor kids came over in the end of November. And so
that in and of itself is culture shock.
That was terrible for them. And so first of all, they had to wear coats and they had to wear shoes and they had to wear hats. And so that was like traumatic for them at first because it was so cold and windy and it was not sunny and breezy. So that was hard. And it was also Christmas. And so like Christmas in Africa is all about, Jesus's birthday and having a big meal. But these poor kids, they fly in and it's like lights and Santa and Christmas. And they're like, what is all this craziness? And like, who is that fat guy on a sled? So that was really crazy for them, but also really fun. It was really magical and really fun. So the first year that they were home was really quite fun and amazing. Like, I loved the first time it snowed. They thought that it was raining ice cream, and they would walk around to all the windows and lick all the windows. It was so gross, totally gross, but also really cool. And they loved it. They did not care about being cold at the time. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. So they transitioned really well. They transitioned really well. I think my husband and I transitioned pretty well. We went from not having any kids to having two kids, two boys who could walk and talk and like pull things like cause destruction.
Right.
Like I think most parents, when you have like an infant, like the beauty is they're an infant and they can't really move and you can just swaddle them up and they stay where you put them.
There's definitely like a slower roll into it where all of a sudden you're just like thrust and it's not just one, but two boys. So
and they talk. And you're like, what? And they don't even talk our language. So you're like, wait a minute, what are you saying? I don't speak that. So so I think my husband and I had a harder time because we were used to like calm and quiet. And then we had two boys who were used to living outside most of the time, playing with sticks and rocks and dirt and lots of other kids from the orphanage. And then it was just us at home inside because it was cold. And so I think it was a much harder transition for my husband and I than it was.
Well, even your family for the Sunday, meals, that adds a whole new element to it as well, where all of a sudden now they get to learn from many and they get to, your family gets to learn from them as well. So I just think, one, it's obviously, it shows on your end the purpose, the higher purpose, the commitment, the focus on family, the willingness to step out of your comfort zone for you and your husband to take that big leap of faith, knowing that you're going to be able to make a difference in the lives of these two children. I think at the same time, though, it's also important for listeners to understand it's a cool opportunity to bring cultures together and to learn from each other and to experience things together that you would have never been exposed to had you not taken this journey.
Absolutely. Yes. 120,000%. It is so cool. And, I didn't fully realize how cool that really is until we were home. And even years later, and I don't even think I could fully accept it and fully understand it. Just the beauty of mixing, of having a family that my boys say don't match, like we don't match. And to have a family that doesn't match and how beautiful that really is. And we've been so blessed to have the ability to remain friends with the main missionaries at the orphanage. And we're also so lucky because we live so close to a main airport that whenever they fly back and forth, they stop by and they spend the night with us and when they spend the weekend with us.
That's
And
awesome.
so we're able to keep that connection. Like in December, we saw like 5 of them, and they got to spend the night with us and see the boys, and the boys got to see them. And then to just kind of continue to bridge that culture, and just to like hear so much about Uganda, and it keeps it alive for my husband and I, but also for the boys. And that just makes it so cool.
Thank you for listening to our ChangeMakers podcast. cityCURRENT is a catalyst of over 100 partners joining forces and funds to power the good through free events, positive media, and philanthropy. If you like our efforts and you're looking to power the good with us, follow us on social media at cityCURRENT and check out our website at citycurrent.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen. And if you know a changemaker, please reach out and let us know so we can consider them for a future show. The ChangeMakers podcast is brought to you by DataFacts. DataFacts is a national provider of trusted background screening products such as criminal searches, drug screening, employment and education verifications, and post-hire monitoring to employers of all sizes. DataFacts is one of the few background screeners that holds the stringent National Association of Professional Background Screeners accreditation. They're certified by the WBENC as a 100% woman-owned business, and in 2018, they were ranked by HRO Today's Baker's Dozen customer satisfaction ratings as one of the top background screeners in the nation. You are in good hands with DataFacts. Visit datafacts.com to learn more and make sure to mention the ChangeMakers podcast. And now, back to the show. What outside of the raining, ice cream, give us something that's been a favorite, either, experience or something that you've learned from them. What's something that, in other words, that you've been able to take away from this experience from them?
Oh my goodness. A lot. Raining ice cream is definitely one. But just I'll try to think of a couple of really good ones. They still say some really cute things. I mean, they're big now. They're bigger now, and they're definitely like Americanized, because for sure their favorite food is Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets, which they certainly never had in Uganda. So don't get me wrong. They are not just eating like the Ugandan food the little Ugandan food that I'm able to make. They are definitely Americanized, which part of me is happy about and part of me is not so happy about. But some of the things that they have taken with them, like he's my middle son, but he was my youngest son from Uganda. He has this really nurturing heart that I fully believe is from Uganda. And his dream in life is to grow up to be a babysitter. He loves babies. He loves taking care of babies. And he will tell me that he remembers the baby's home that he grew up in, or he spent his first 2 years in. Wow. Now, whether they're real memories or they're just the memories that like we've told him about through pictures and videos, that is something that he has really held on to, and he loves the whole idea of a baby's home. And that's what he wants. He wants to work at a baby's home and be a babysitter when he grows up. So that is one of like the sweetest things that I think that we have been able to take away from it, is just that connection to kind of where they've come from.
Love it. Let's switch over and talk about on the business side, Clapping Dog Media. And, on your end, when you're talking to businesses and sitting down with them and just kind of sharing, your expertise a little bit, what are some of your favorite tips, tricks? I mean, give us a little bit of a teaser of your world from a business side, of just what are some of the things that you enjoy talking about and just some of your favorite tips?
Oh, sure. So SEO, if you don't know, is search engine optimization, and it's basically the way to get Google to find you. So SEO is the bridge that connects Google searchers with your website. And my passion is to kind of dispel the myths that SEO is complicated, it's expensive, and that it changes all the time. So the thing that I really like to talk about is to say that Google is a business, and they really want to match the best websites with what people are searching for. And so I highly recommend that you write regularly on your website and you provide good content and valuable content to your users, and that you show that you're an expertise in your field and that you have authority and that you are trustworthy. Because if you are an expertise in your field, and if you know what you're talking about and you provide value to your audience, then Google's going to notice that people spend time on your site and they click around and they convert to become your client. And so if you just kind of do good business and you're authentic, then you're not only going to get clients, but Google's going to recognize that and they're going to rank you higher in the search results page. So I like to kind of break it down to make it reasonable and sensible so you can take really clear actions on your website.
And also, too, just knowing a little bit of your focus and story, too, one of the topics on your end that you like to talk about is the significance of simplicity. Elaborate a little bit more on that side.
Right. Well, like I said, I really love to kind of break down this. There is like this negative connotation, I feel like, in the world of SEO, and people don't capitalize on all the traffic. They don't capitalize on the traffic that Google can offer them because they feel like it's too complicated and it's overwhelming. And so they'll just stick with social media or referrals because that's how they know how to get clients. And it makes me so sad because there's billions of people searching every day on Google, and it doesn't have to be hard. And if you just stick with a couple really simple rules that are good business. Good business is good SEO. Then you will turn the tide and get more traffic. Like, you don't have to do all of the technical things, and you don't have to do all of the complicated things, and you don't have to keep up with the Google algorithm to prove that you know what you're talking about, and you don't have to hack the system in a negative way to grow your traffic. So I do like to keep it simple and just tell people to write good content and write regularly and link to quality sources and tell people about it on your social media, kind of toot your own horn. And basic things like that really will alert Google and grow your client base.
What advice do you have for especially nonprofits who, in today's day and age, there's so much clutter, competitive clutter, and between the emails and social media, but obviously for them to do what they do, there has to be the funding to drive their mission. And I think nonprofits are always struggling with how do we raise more awareness? How do we increase our fundraising? How do we get more volunteers? And obviously they have to make an emotional tie. What advice would you give, maybe just 1-2 little bits, but for nonprofits to break through that clutter, to use social media and SEO effectively, but to create that emotional connection? How would you kind of advise them to be able to be effective?
Oh, that is a great question. And, that is a really great question. And my go-to advice answer is just to tell your story, show your value. And that doesn't mean boast about or tell about all of your accomplishments or like everything that you've done, but tell about the difference that you are making and the value that you add to this world, the good that you're doing to this world, because your story really is going to resonate and connect with people much more so than kind of giving your your rap sheet of who you are. I really like to to sell your value and show the good that you're doing, kind of tell your story in a meaningful way.
And I think too, you're a perfect example when you can, through the nonprofits, but encourage your supporters, the businesses, the individuals, the families to be a part of that story, to share their personal story using their social media and kind of tie it back. You become the greatest ambassador as a business, as an individual, as a family, to kind of share the personal story, whether it's through the adoption, or I know that you work a lot with an organization out of Nicaragua where you can donate bicycles. there's really cool elements where you become the greatest ambassador, but where nonprofits can lean on you to help promote and share those stories, and everyone wins as a result. So I think, even being strategic on how do we kind of share our stories together, but push together is an important piece of it as well.
That is exactly right. And really celebrating, I really love to celebrate the people who win out of it. Like celebrate the people, like if you're a nonprofit, who benefits from you in your service. Like tell people their story, show people the results of the good that you're doing. And together, everybody wins. Everybody wants to to support you because they want to support that person in the field.
Talk about you annually give back. It's 15%, on average, but of your profits. Talk about you. I know that you've said you use your business as a chance to give back. That's your way of being able to leverage your expertise, but ultimately to use it as a vehicle to create change. Talk about your perspective on using your business and encouraging others to use their business to be able to make a difference.
Oh, well, I can talk about this forever. I love, I get really excited about this, and I really I try to talk to all of my clients about this because I really feel like change can happen when you help and you give. And, not only is it something that is in my faith, but it is like scientifically proven that you are happier when you get to give and when you get to enable somebody to kind of go after their dream. So you are a better, happier person when you give. And you don't have to give to the organizations that I care about. I really want people and businesses to give, to find something that they're passionate about. That's the thing that lights them up, that sets their soul on fire, that gets them out of bed so that they have a real big purpose behind the work that they do. Because at the end of the day, work gets to be work. It's hard and challenging. And what is really motivating to me is having that bigger purpose and knowing that there is good, and we are doing good. And together, my clients and I, we're in partnership to make lives better. So yeah, my business sponsors Kids from Compassion, and every month we write to them, and I certainly give back to the orphanage that my kids are from, and that orphanage has like a job training program and a healthcare clinic and a feeding program and a school and a self-sustaining farm. They have and a pastor's training program. They have a lot of initiatives that need a lot of support, and I am just humbled to help in a little bit of the way. And it's just so cool.
Well, we can't mention Clapping Dog Media without talking about the fact that you do have a dog, Vader.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of a teaser on your dog.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to say it out loud. I'm part dog. I love dogs, and dogs make me really happy. And so for while we were waiting for so long for our adoption, at the time I had a different dog. Her name was Stella, and she was a yellow lab. And so I would work, and I would work from home at times. And when I would get really excited, which happened all the time, I would clap. I am a clapper. I clap all the time. And then every time I clapped, Stella would come out from under my desk and wag her tail. Her whole body would wag. And then together we would be really excited. So since I worked from home and there was no one else here, it was like me and Stella. Unfortunately, Stella has died, and we now have Vader, who my boys have named because of Star Wars. And he's a black golden doodle, but I have actually taught him to do the exact same thing. So he sleeps underneath my desk. And then when I get really excited, which happens 5 or 6 times an hour, I clap, and I'm like, oh, look what we've done. This is really exciting. And he gets out, and then his whole body wags. And then together we get really excited and we clap. So that's my awesome business. Me and the dog clap. So it's weird, but yeah, That's why my business
Well,
is so
hey, it's not that
clocked
weird.
on
My
media.
team would tell you, and my wife and family would all say the same thing, is when I get excited, I start snapping. So it's kind of the same thing. So we all
I
have our
like
little
that.
quirks when we get happy.
Yeah,
Um,
I love it.
so let's switch over. It's something that we call kind of a lightning round, but it's just short questions, short answers, just kind of the first thing that pops into your head and my head. And it's just a kind of a fun way to start wrapping up. But one, give us a recent book you've read.
I just finished Everything Always, Bob Goff. I love it.
Yeah. What's a recent TV show or movie? This is where we find out, especially for those who have kids, it's always like a cartoon or for.
Oh my gosh. No, I've been obsessed with on Netflix, the tidying up, Marie Kondo, of like the magic art of tidying up. I haven't done anything about it, but I've been watching it obsessively.
But it's the thought that counts, right?
Totally. I'm like, does this spark joy? I don't know. I'll just leave it right there on the table.
I think that's why every night when I try to go to bed, my wife goes to bed before I do, and she'll leave it on like either the cooking channel or like the DIY type, the home improvement. I think she's hoping that like it'll sink in through osmosis that I start learning those traits, and it hasn't worked yet.
Well, good luck. That's exactly what it is with the magic art of tidying up. I'm like, what is it? But yeah, for sure.
What's a favorite place that you like to go for vacation?
Oh, Marco Island in Florida. We just went right before Christmas because I like to ease into the holidays with the vacation, and it's warm and wonderful, and I love it.
So for those who get a chance to go and take a trip to your neck of the woods, what's a favorite spot that we should all go visit?
Oh my gosh, there's so many fun things to do around Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. You get all of Washington, D.C. All the monuments, there's amazing museums. It's a great foodie spot. But then I'm in the suburbs, I'm outside of the city, and Virginia has a really hip and so fun, like wine country. So it's really great to go to a winery in Northern Virginia. So There's so many things to do.
What's a favorite restaurant?
Oh my gosh, that's not even fair.
This is our chance
There
to kind
are
of
so
like,
many.
pick your brain a little bit on, where should we all go?
There are so many of them. My gosh, that's not even fair. Okay, so I'm just going to pick one. There's one really close by that we go to. That's like my favorite date night spot, and it's called the Wine Kitchen. And their menu changes on a weekly basis, and it's just amazing and delicious. And it's like a tiny hole in the wall in our little town.
Nice. What do you like to do to relax?
Dude, I like to do lots of things. I like to exercise. We like to go for walks or like to go for long runs, play with the kids, go to movies. I like to do all kinds of things. Cook. I like to eat. I like to cook. If you like to eat, you'll have to cook, eat, all those things.
Can't get enough of either of those. Like to eat and like to What's something that you and your husband enjoy doing?
Oh, we like to travel. So whenever possible, which is not that often, but maybe once or twice a year, we like to get away for long weekends, and we'll go and like explore a new city together. So that's something that we really like to do together.
Give us a favorite quote or saying, or it can be a bit of advice from your parents, but what's kind of a quote that you carry with you today that inspires you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know if this is inspiring, but the thing that is drilled into my head from my parents was, nothing good happens after midnight, Megan.
Sounds like advice you would give to your kids as well.
And it turns out at the time, I didn't think it was true, but it actually is true. Nothing good really ever happens after midnight. But then always be kind and be generous. My parents are extremely generous and very kind. And they always taught me to give people the benefit of the doubt.
What do you hope? I mean, obviously on your end, and this is kind of as we wrap up, but you have a chance obviously to forge your path and to forge your legacy each and every day. But ultimately, what do you hope that people say about you personally as a part of your legacy?
Gosh, that I am faith-filled and that I am a big cheerleader for people. I want to encourage people and be a big cheerleader for them, and just to give them hope, and to be super generous with time and money and knowledge.
Love it. Well, the last question is always the easiest, is how do we learn more about you and your efforts, about Clapping Dog Media? So where do we go? Website, social media? How do we follow the conversation? How do we stay in touch?
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. My website is clappingdogmedia.com. And I spend most of my time on Instagram. And so you can follow me on Instagram. I do lots of Insta stories. And you can meet Vader there too. He at my Instagram is Clapping Dog Media, and from Insta I link to Vader's Instagram, so that's kind of fun. He is Clapping Dude. So my biggest ways to find me is my website and Instagram.
Well, Meg, we greatly appreciate you coming on the ChangeMakers podcast, sharing your story, inspiring us, and with what you're doing, not only as a business, but also to just personally making a difference. We greatly appreciate all you doing for coming on the show. So thank you very much.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for talking with me today.
Thank you for listening to the ChangeMakers Podcast, produced by cityCURRENT and brought to you by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance and DataFacts. To learn more about our guests and to share your stories of others leading by example, visit us online at citycurrent.com and follow us on social media using @citycurrent. Please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen. Now, think big, start small, and act now. Be a change maker.